The barren one. The wind on planet Velmora was always cold. It cut through trees like knives and filled the air with a sound that felt like quiet crying. Kayla stood alone near the edge of the healing cliffs, her long silver robe flowing behind her. Her skin glowed faintly blue in the moonlight and her eyes reflected the sky. She was a healer, born with the gift to mend bones, calm fevers, and bring balance to others. But not to herself, not to her own body, because Kayla was barren. Velmoran society, being barren was worse than being injured, worse than being sick. It meant you were incomplete. For her people, the ability to bear life was sacred. Women without it were labeled vessels of silence, allowed to live, allowed to heal, but never allowed to lead, to bond, or to belong. Kayla had tried to hide her truth when she was younger. But the elders found out. After testing, they gave her the mark, a soft glow on the wrist, invisible to others unless summoned. She wore a cuff now to keep it hidden. But in her heart, she always felt it burn. Her life was quiet. She lived in a small sanctuary far from the city where only rare patients came. She worked with herbs, light medicine, and quiet songs. No one visited without need. No one stayed long, and no one ever asked how she felt, until the day the sky cracked open. A ship roared through the clouds, its engine burning. Kayla looked up, surprised. No travelers were expected. No human ships were allowed in this sector. Then came the sound of metal ripping, smoke, fire, and silence. The ship crashed beyond the North Ridge. Kayla didn't think. She grabbed her cloak, her healer's kit, and ran across the snow. The path was steep. Trees bent low under frozen weight. But she kept running. When she reached the crash site, she saw the broken shell of a human exploration craft, half buried in ice. The door was jammed. She climbed on top, pulled out a latch, and with great effort, it opened. Inside, everything was dark, until a soft groan came from behind a panel. She crawled forward, and there, under smoke and sparks, lay a man, a human, wounded, bloody, unconscious. His skin was pale, his hair dark and messy. One arm was broken, the other clutching his side. He had a scar under one eye and dirt on his face, but his chest was still rising. Still breathing. Kayla pressed 2 fingers to his neck. Alive. She stared at him for a long second. No human had visited Velmora in 10 years, and no human had ever entered this region without being hunted. If anyone else found him, he'd be reported, taken, questioned, possibly killed. But Kayla was not like others. She wrapped his arm, stopped the bleeding, and whispered softly, "You don't belong here, but maybe, neither do I." She carried him back to her sanctuary on a hover stretcher. It took hours. She didn't stop once. When they arrived, she cleaned his wounds, applied healing stones, and covered him in thermal blankets. Then she sat beside him, watching, waiting, listening. He woke in the early hours of the next day. His voice was rough, tired. "Am I dead?" Kayla sat still. "No. You're in Velmora's outer sanctuary." He blinked. "You're not human." "No." He looked around, confused. "Why did you save me?" She hesitated. "Because no one else would." He smiled, faintly. "You talk like you understand that." She didn't answer. Over the next few days, the man slowly healed. His name was Grant. He said his ship had been struck by a storm after a failed navigation jump. He'd been alone on a solo mission, scouting lost trade routes. "I didn't mean to land here," he said. Kayla nodded. "Most people never do." He noticed her quiet sadness but never pushed. Instead, he helped her around the sanctuary. He fixed a broken panel, reprogrammed her scanner, laughed when her tea machine made strange noises, and Kayla laughed too. Something she hadn't done in years. One night, as snow fell outside, Grant sat beside the fire. He looked at her with kind eyes. "Can I ask something?" he said. Kayla nodded. "Why do you live so far away? You're a healer. You could be in the city." She looked into the fire. "Because in the city, I'm nothing," he frowned. "I don't believe that." She turned to him. "I can't bear children. To my people. That means I have no purpose." Grant leaned closer. Maybe they've forgotten that healing someone's heart is more powerful than giving life. Kayla looked away quickly, blinking fast. No one had ever said something like that to her. Not once. That night, as she lay awake in her bed, she placed a hand gently on her stomach. For the first time in years, she didn't feel empty. She felt warm, and something deep inside her body moved. A spark in the snow. The snow fell harder now. It covered the sanctuary in layers of silence. The wind whispered through the trees like voices too old to understand. Kayla stood near the window staring out at the white world. Inside, the human, Grant, was sleeping again. His strength was returning slowly, but something else was changing too. And so was she. For 3 days now she had felt it. A strange warmth under her skin, a pulse in her stomach, a flutter in her chest. Not from fear, but from something older. Something she had been told would never happen, something impossible. She pressed a hand gently to her abdomen. Still no pain. No sickness. Only a quiet glow. She hadn't told Grant yet, and she hadn't activated her medical scanner because a part of her was afraid. Not of what she might find, but of what it might mean if the truth was real. That evening, as the fire crackled and soft lights glowed, on the walls Grant walked into the main room with a slow smile. He wore her old robe, it barely fit him, and carried a small wooden bowl of soup. "I made this. It's not toxic, I promise." Kayla laughed softly. "I'm more worried it'll taste like the last thing you made." He sat beside her and smiled. No smoke this time. They shared the meal in calm silence, but Kayla's eyes kept flicking. To the scanner table in the corner, Grant noticed, something wrong? She hesitated. "No, just, distracted." He tilted his head. "You've been quiet lately." She stood suddenly. "There's something I need to check in the lab. I won't be long." She walked away before he could stop her. In the back room, Kayla sat beside the medical console. Her hand hovered over the scanner interface. Her heart beat like thunder. Finally, she placed her hand in the reader. A soft light scanned her palm, then her wrist, then slowly moved down to her lower stomach. The machine blinked once, twice, then it chimed, and a single word appeared on the screen. "Life detected." Kayla froze. Her breath caught in her throat. The scan repeated. "Life detected. Species. Unknown hybrid. Female. Stage. Early development." She covered her mouth with both hands. Tears filled her eyes. She was not alone anymore, but joy quickly turned to fear. What would the elders do if they found out? What would her people say? This had never happened before. A child, part Velmoran, part human, they would never allow it. They would call her cursed again, or worse. A threat. She shut off the scanner and returned to the fire. Grant was reading a dusty old journal, probably one of her grandmother's. He looked up and smiled. "You okay?" She sat beside him and nodded slowly. "Yes, just a lot on my mind." He reached out and gently touched her hand. "You don't have to carry everything alone." She looked at him, his face kind, his eyes full of honesty. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to fall into his arms and say everything, but before she could, a loud buzz echoed through the sanctuary. A sensor. Someone was approaching. Kayla jumped to her feet. She ran to the door panel and pulled up the outside view. A group of figures in long black cloaks were crossing the ridge. Velmoran council watchers. And they were heading straight for her sanctuary. She turned to Grant. "You have to hide." He stood quickly. "What? Why?" "They'll take you. And if they scan me now, they'll know." Grant didn't ask more questions. He just nodded. She led him to the hidden cellar under the floor, used long ago for herb storage. It was sealed, dark and invisible from outside scans. He stepped down, but before she closed the hatch, he reached up. Kayla, whatever happens, don't lie to them, but don't give them everything either. She nodded, then sealed the door. Minutes later, the elders arrived, tall, silent, glowing with authority. The leader, Elder Mayor, stepped inside. You've been quiet, he said. Too quiet. Kayla bowed slightly. I live in silence. He walked slowly through the room, sniffing the air like a wolf. We detected strange energy around your sanctuary, foreign particles, human trail markers. Kayla kept her face calm. I haven't seen any ships. Lies burn, he whispered. He turned sharply to her and grabbed her wrist. Before she could stop him, he activated the identity mark beneath her cuff. The glow returned, the barren mark. Still there, still proof. He let go and stepped back. You are no threat, still hollow. Kayla nodded slowly, but inside her heart, something pulsed again. Not hollow. Not anymore. When the Watchers left, she waited until their ship disappeared over the mountains, then opened the hatch. Grant crawled out, coughing from dust. What did they say? Kayla looked at him, then finally whispered the truth. I'm carrying your child. He stared at her, stunned, then slowly stepped forward, eyes wide, and gently placed his hand over her stomach. She nodded. It's real. He didn't speak. He just smiled and cried. Outside, the snow continued to fall, soft, gentle, but high above them the stars blinked in warning, because the spark had been lit, and fire was coming. The child that should not be. The next morning, Velmora's skies turned gray. Snow still fell, but now it came with weight, like the planet itself knew what was coming. Kayla sat in silence near the hearth. Her hands were folded over her stomach. The flame of life inside her still glowed gently, quiet but undeniable. She was pregnant, and the child growing inside her was not just rare, it was impossible. Grant knelt beside her. He touched her arm carefully. They'll find out eventually. She nodded. I know. He said nothing more because both of them understood. Velmoran law was clear. No hybrids. No mixed bloodlines. No child born from forbidden bonds. If the elders learned the truth, they wouldn't just take the child. They would erase it. Later that day, Kayla activated the sanctuary's deepest medical scan. The results made her heart race. The child's heart was strong. Its genes were balanced, Velmoran and human. Perfect harmony. Her body had changed to support the birth naturally, even though every test from her past said she couldn't. She was no longer barren, but still marked as such by law. To the world, she was still empty, and that lie might be the only thing protecting her child. But peace never lasts. 2 days later, a warning blared through the sanctuary's outer sensors. A message was being broadcast across the region, from the Elder Council itself. Attention to all outer healers. Unregistered human contact has been confirmed in Sector 7. Any life form showing altered biometrics must be reported. Non-compliance will be treated as betrayal. Kayla shut off the broadcast. Grant stood behind her. His face was calm, but his hand was on his weapon. They know, she whispered. Not everything, he said, but enough. She turned to him. If they catch us, they'll take her. He nodded. Then we don't let them. That night they packed everything they could carry: medical herbs, survival packs, a data crystal containing the baby's scans. Kayla wrote a message on her old stone tablet, the kind her people still used for official healing logs. I am not broken. I am becoming. Then they left. They took the old moon path, through the frozen canyons under the northern ice shelf. It was dangerous, unguarded, but also unmonitored. Kayla walked slower now, The baby, still tiny inside her, pulled at her energy. Grant supported her every step. He never let go of her hand, but just before sunrise, while crossing a narrow ice bridge, a blast exploded behind them. Kayla screamed as Grant covered her body. With his guards, they had followed. "Don't run," one shouted. "We're here for the child only. The healer will be spared." Kayla stood, blood on her lip. "No." They fired a stun beam, hitting her side. She fell, gasping. Grant turned and fired back, his pulse weapon glowing blue in the storm. 2 guards dropped. But more came. From the sky, a sleek black ship landed, marked with the Elder seal. Out stepped Eldermere, his eyes glowed with cruel calm. "You should have stayed silent," he said. Grant pointed his weapon. "Don't take another step." Mayor raised his hand. A sonic wave struck Grant's chest, sending him flying across the bridge. Kayla cried out, crawling toward him. But Mayor stopped her. He knelt beside her and placed a cold device against her stomach. The light blinked red. Hybrid confirmed. Kayla's eyes burned with tears. "Please." Mayor didn't answer. He activated a comlink. "Prepare the specimen pod. The mother is unstable. Begin transfer protocol." Kayla screamed and tried to move, but 2 guards held her down. She felt cold metal press against her skin. A strange numbness spread through her belly. Then, everything went dark. She woke in a glass room. The walls hummed with energy. She was strapped to a medical chair. Alone, her stomach, she gasped. It felt empty. She screamed, again and again, until her voice broke. Somewhere nearby, a scientist spoke into a recorder. "Specimen 47 is stable. Genetic blend shows rapid development. Subject may redefine cross-species fertility law." Another voice added, "The mother must be observed but kept isolated. Her emotional state is unstable." Kayla heard every word. She wasn't a mother. To them, she was just a vessel. Again, but they had made one mistake. They hadn't killed Grant, and they hadn't broken her fire. Not this time. In the shadows of the facility, deep in the maintenance tunnels, Grant woke up, bruised, bleeding, but alive and armed. He checked his gear, pulled out the data crystal Kayla gave him, and whispered, "I'm coming back for you, and I'm bringing her home." Stolen from the womb, Kayla couldn't stop shaking. She sat on the cold floor of her cell, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes staring at the wall where a security camera blinked quietly. She didn't cry anymore. There were no tears left, only silence and rage. Somewhere inside this cold, heartless facility, her child was alive. Taken, labeled a specimen. Not as a miracle. Not as someone's daughter, but as a thing. A test. A secret. Kayla remembered the moment the warmth inside her disappeared. She had screamed when the numbness spread through her body. But no one listened. She had begged. They called her unstable. They said this was the only way to protect the galaxy. But the galaxy didn't need protecting from her child. It needed protecting from them. She stood, walked to the door, placed both hands. On it, closed her eyes and whispered something ancient, something forgotten, a prayer not for help, but for awakening. Far beneath her, Grant crouched in the shadow of a service tunnel. He had stolen a uniform from a fallen guard outside the ice ridge. Now, with dirt on his face and fire in his veins, he moved like a ghost between the walls. The stolen access card around his neck blinked green at every checkpoint. The stasis chambers were just ahead. He reached a sealed room. Inside was a pod, small, clear, and floating in glowing blue light was a tiny form, a baby, sleeping peacefully, half human, half Velmaran, whole. He stared at her through the glass. He couldn't breathe. He had seen many strange things in the galaxy, but nothing like this. Nothing so pure. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Voices. He ducked behind the console. 2 researchers entered. They began checking readings. "Specimen is adapting fast," one said. "The child will need reprogramming if we want to keep control," said the other. Grant's blood boiled. He couldn't wait. He stood, raised his weapon, and fired twice. Both scientists fell. He ran to the console, hands shaking. The TI podlock had 10 levels of security. He hacked the first 3. Then an alarm blared. Too slow. Too late. Kayla, from her cell, heard the siren. Her heart dropped. Something was happening, and her body, still weak from the forced procedure, responded to the sound like a flame to oxygen. She pressed her palms against the wall again. Her skin began to glow, not blue, but gold, color that hadn't been seen in generations, the mark of the Flame Mothers, the original warriors of Velmora. The cell door hissed, snapped open. Guards ran in. She turned to them slowly. Her eyes burned, and her voice shook the room. "You should not have touched my child." She raised her hands, and light exploded. In the stasis chamber, Grant pulled the last lock open. The pod hissed softly. He reached in with trembling hands. The baby was warm, alive. And when he touched her cheek, she smiled. His heart cracked open. Behind him, doors burst open. Elder Mayor stepped in with 6 armed guards. Grant turned, holding the baby close. "You won't take her again?" Mayor raised a weapon. "You're a human. A mistake." Grant stared him down. "No. I'm a father." Just as the guards raised their rifles, a roar tore through the walls, and Kayla walked in. Her robe burned with light. Her eyes were fierce, glowing. Everyone froze, even Mayor. Kayla stepped forward, slowly, powerfully. "Give me my child." Grant moved to her, placed the baby in her arms. "Me." Moment Kayla touched her daughter again. A golden shockwave burst outward. The alarms shut off. Lights flickered. Doors unlocked across the complex. And every sensor, every piece of tech, glitched for 10 whole seconds. When the systems recovered, Kayla and Grant were gone, vanished into the snowstorm outside, and the child, still glowing softly in her mother's arms, was safe. Hours later, they reached an old mountain cave. Kayla wrapped the baby in her old cloak. Grant built a fire. They sat together in silence, the child sleeping between them. Finally, Kayla spoke. "I'm not the same as before." He smiled tiredly. "None of us are. I feel stronger, like I'm becoming something ancient." He looked into her eyes. "You were always something ancient. They just didn't see it." Outside, the wind howled, but inside, the fire burned. A family now whole. Running, yes, but not afraid. Not anymore. Because the child they called a mistake would one day become the very future they feared, a mother's wrath. The stars over Velmora burned red that night. Some said it was a solar flare, others knew better. Something had awakened in the old blood, and it carried the fury of a mother. Kyla stood at the mouth of the mountain cave, the wind cutting through her robe. In her arms, her daughter slept soundly. Grant stood nearby, watching her carefully, silently. Kayla's skin still glowed faintly gold. Her body had changed since the day they escaped the research facility. She was stronger. Her wounds healed faster. Her senses were sharper. And inside her, burning deep, was a power once feared by the galaxy, the flame of the first mothers. For generations, Velmoran leaders had erased stories of these warrior women, mothers, who had protected life with fire, not rules. Kayla had grown up believing she was broken. Now she understood the truth. She had not failed her people. Her people had failed her. In the distance, patrol ships circled. The elders were hunting them again, but this time Kayla would not run. "We have to move," Grant said. "They'll scan this region by morning." Kayla didn't speak. She stared into the snow. "I'm not hiding anymore," she said. Grant looked at her. "You mean to fight?" "I mean to finish what they started." He nodded slowly. "I'll follow you." wherever it leads. That night, Kayla sent a signal, a pulse through the stars. Not to the elders, not to the council, to someone else. To the scattered women across the galaxy who had been marked like her. The forgotten, the silent, the so-called barren. And when they heard her flame call, they answered. Within 2 days, 3 ships arrived in orbit, old models. Faded colors, but inside were warriors, Velmoran females, outcasts, midwives, star pilots, refugees. Some wore armor, some wore nothing but flame tattoos. All carried the same message. We were not hollow. We were waiting. Kayla stood before them, on the ridge. She held her child for all to see. This is not just about me, she said. They stole our right to bring life, to protect it, to be life. She looked at her child, then the sky. Now we rise. Their target? The Northern Data Vault, a hidden fortress where the elders kept all records, birth logs, and bloodline controls. It was also where new genetic laws were written and rewritten. If they could breach it, they could reveal the truth. Expose every lie and make sure no child would ever be taken again. The next night, Kayla led the charge. Her hands burned with light. Grant flew overhead in a stolen ship, disabling the perimeter shields. The Flame Mothers moved fast, striking without warning. Elder Mare watched from the upper tower. He ordered his guards to fire, but their weapons failed. Kayla had corrupted the code with her flame. One by one, the systems died, and in the center of the storm, she walked through the gates like a goddess. Inside the vault, guards tried to stop her. She didn't kill them. She didn't have to. She simply raised her arms, and golden fire swept through the halls, knocking them unconscious, disarming them. With light, not death, because this was not about destruction, it was about truth. In the main chamber, she reached the control node, placed her palm on the ancient reader. It scanned her, denied access. She tried again. Still denied. Then her daughter, now cradled in Grant's arms, reached out, touched the console with her tiny hand. The system blinked. Access granted. The hybrid child was the key. Data poured onto the wall. Hundreds of hidden files, medical lies, censored test results, thousands of female children labeled barren when they were not, suppressed genetic combinations, erased pregnancies. One by one, Kayla transferred the files to a crystal, then broadcasted them galaxy-wide, every planet, every sector, every mother. She turned to the camera and spoke, her voice calm, powerful. My name is Kayla. I was told I could never give life. They were wrong. My child is not a threat. She is the future. And if you ever tried to silence someone like me, know this. She raised her hand. Flame surged behind her. We are done being silent. Back on the palace moon, Elder Maor watched, her face on every screen. He knew it was over. Kayla stepped out of the vault, her people behind her. Grant met her at the gate, their child glowing between them. She looked at him and whispered, "It's not over yet." But for the first time, she smiled, because now the galaxy knew her name, and no one could take her child again. Exile of Fire and Blood. The hidden moon of Ravanna drifted in a quiet corner of space. No cities, no lights, only mountains, rivers, and silence. It was the place where forgotten things went to breathe again, and now, it was home. Kayla stood by the water's edge, holding her child in one arm, her other hand resting on a tall staff made of starlight steel. Her daughter, now weeks old, slept peacefully. But Kayla's eyes never rested. She scanned the skies, always watching. She had become something more than a mother now. She was a leader, and she was being hunted. Since the night they stormed the data vault, Kayla's message had spread across planets. Some celebrated her, others cursed her. The Velmoran Elder Council declared her a traitor. They erased her name from all birth records, labeled her a genetic terrorist, offered rewards for her capture. But many ignored them, too many, because truth moves faster than lies, and the flame was spreading. Dozens of outlaw ships now orbited Ravenna, refugees, mothers, warriors, scientists who had once been silenced. Even humans arrived, drawn by the mystery, the power, and the courage they had seen in the hybrid mother who faced down. A council of tyrants. Grant walked into their camp with fresh supplies. His clothes were dusty, his boots worn, but his smile never changed. He handed Kayla a message crystal. "From Earth," he said. Kayla activated it. A human leader appeared, offering protection, open territory, and full political recognition for Kayla and her child. But Kayla shook her head. "Not yet," she whispered. "We can't hide behind another power. We must finish this on our own." Later that night, Kayla met with her growing alliance. They sat around a fire built from blue wood that burned with soft light. She looked at the women around her. Some wore armor made of bone. Others had circuit tattoos that glowed with movement. Some held their children in their arms. Each one had been called broken. Each one had been told they were nothing. Now they waited for Kayla to speak. "We were born in silence," she said. "But silence is not weakness, it's the space before thunder." The fire reflected in her eyes. "They hunted me, took my child, labeled us mistakes. But here we are." She stood tall. "And we are not finished." A scout ran in moments later, breathless. A ship just entered orbit, one of theirs. Kayla nodded. "How many on board?" "Just one," the scout replied. "A peacekeeper from the Elder Council." Everyone grew tense. Was it a trick or something more? Kayla allowed the ship to land. She met the peacekeeper alone on a stone ridge above the valley. The woman who stepped out was not what Kayla expected. She was old, her robes worn, her hair silver. Her eyes, though, were sharp as a blade. "I come alone," the peacekeeper said, "not for war, for warning." Kayla watched her silently. "They're preparing something," the woman said. "Something final. The elders know they're losing the people's trust. They plan to erase your legacy, your child, everything." Kayla gripped her staff tighter. "They'll strike Ravenna?" The woman nodded. "Within 3 days, unless you surrender." Kayla turned away. "Tell them this." She looked at the stars. "We don't surrender." Back at the camp, Kayla made her decision. She would not wait for fire to fall. She would carry the fight to them. But first she would protect her daughter. She gave Grant the crystal containing their child's identity, genetic code, and flame activation key. "If anything happens," she said, "this is her future." He looked at her with pain in his eyes. "You're planning to leave." She nodded slowly. "Just for a little while." He kissed her forehead. "Then you better come back." The next morning, Kayla stepped aboard a small stealth ship. She wore a black cloak with the flame mark stitched across the back. Her daughter stayed behind, hidden, guarded by warriors who owed her their lives. As the ship lifted into the stars, Kayla didn't look back. She didn't cry. She burned, for she was no longer just a woman, or a mother, or a fugitive. She was exile of fire, and blood in the galaxy had not yet seen her wrath in full. She who births the future. The council chambers of Velmora had never been so full. Thousands gathered. Leaders, scientists, generals, and citizens from every known world. Human delegates stood beside alien rulers. Screens hovered in the air, broadcasting, "Live to billions." The air was heavy with tension. Because today, Kayla was coming, and the galaxy didn't know what to expect. The last time she stood in this place, she had been silent, barren, small. Now, she walked in wearing a cloak of silver and flame, her head held high. No crown, no title, only truth. Grant sat in the upper chamber holding their child in his arms. She slept peacefully, her skin glowing with both human warmth and Velmoran light. She was the reason this day existed. She was the reason the old world would end. Elder Mayor, still wearing his ceremonial robes, stood to speak. "We allowed this event today," he said coldly, "as a chance for peace, but let it be clear. Kayla is no longer recognized under Velmarin law." Murmurs filled the room. Kayla stepped forward calmly and spoke. "I was born into silence," she said, "into a system that measured my worth by what I could not give." Her voice was steady. "They said I was hollow, that I could never carry life, that my blood was useless, that my future was already written." She turned slowly to face the crowd. They were wrong. She raised her hand and the screens behind her lit up. Medical records, hidden files, thousands of names. Females marked barren by falsified systems. Children lost, erased, classified. A quiet horror. "Truth," she said, "is not fire, but it burns." She walked to the center of the chamber. "This is my daughter." The camera focused on the child in Grant's arms. "She was born of human and Velmoran blood. She is proof that what you feared was never danger, but change." She took a breath. "Today, I do not ask for your permission," gasps echoed. "I do not ask to be accepted." She looked Mirror in the eyes. "I demand that no child, no mother, no bloodline will be erased again." A long silence followed. Then a single voice rose from the crowd. "I support the Flame Mother." Then another, and another. Within seconds, half, the chamber stood, hands raised. For Kayla. For the child. For the future. Elder Mayor shouted, "This is rebellion." A human diplomat stepped forward calmly. "No. This is evolution." The council fractured that day. Some elders stepped down. Some vanished, but most listened, because the people no longer feared Kayla. They followed her. Weeks later, Kayla stood on the balcony of the new Unity Assembly. The world below was alive with banners, music, and light. She stood beside Grant, holding their daughter, a leader. Approached. "You've been offered a title," he said. "Queen, Prime Healer, even Warden of the Stars." Kayla shook her head. "I don't want a throne." "Then what do you want?" She smiled gently. "A place where no child grows up feeling like they are a mistake." She looked down at her daughter. "Because she is not just mine. She belongs to all of us." Across the stars, statues were built. Not of Kayla as a warrior, but of her as a mother, holding her child. Head lifted to the stars. No weapons. Only light. They called her many names. The Flame Mother. The voice of the silent. She who birthed the future. But Kayla never needed any of them. Because her child was safe. Her truth was known, and her silence had changed the galaxy forever.